It all started with an email. A job offer, promising big money for a simple task, spending one night in the old Redwood Lodge. Located deep in Northern California's dense forest, the lodge was infamous for its abandoned state and eerie past. The sender was anonymous, but the terms were clear: spend the night, document the experience, and receive a $10,000 payout. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would anyone agree to that? But life hadn't been kind to me lately. Bills were piling up, and my car had just died on me. 10 grand was a lifeline I couldn't ignore. The drive to the lodge took me through twisting roads surrounded by towering redwoods. By the time I arrived, the sun was setting. And the forest was drowning in shadows. The lodge stood in the middle of a clearing, its once majestic wooden structure now warped and weathered by time. The windows were shattered, and the door creaked ominously as I pushed it open. The air inside was stale, carrying a faint metallic tang. Dust covered every surface, and the floorboards groaned beneath my boots. I set up my camera gear in the main hall, where a grand chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling. I'd agreed to live stream parts of the night for proof of my stay, so I started by giving my viewers a tour. "This is where the rich and famous used to stay back in the 1930s, I narrated, panning the camera across the decayed furniture. "But it's been abandoned since 1974 after, well, you know the stories. Everyone in the region knew them, how a family of 5 had checked in one winter and never checked out. The official report blamed carbon monoxide poisoning, but locals whispered about something darker. They claimed the family's bodies were found posed, as if frozen mid-dance, their faces twisted in terror. As night fell, the lodge seemed to come alive. The wind howled through the broken windows, and the groaning of the old wood sounded almost rhythmic, like breathing. I chalked it up to the lodge's age and kept streaming. Around 10 p.m., the first strange thing happened. My camera's feed flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw movement in the background. A figure, standing at the top of the grand staircase. But when I turned to look, there was nothing there. "Probably just a glitch," I muttered, trying to convince myself more than my viewers. Still, my hands felt clammy as I adjusted the camera and continued exploring. The dining hall was my next stop. The long table was still set with tarnished silverware, and a thick layer of dust coated everything. As I stepped closer, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Amid the dust, there were fresh streaks. As if someone had dragged their fingers across the table moments before I arrived. "Alright, that's creepy," I said aloud, my voice shaking. The chat exploded with comments: "Run. Dude, get out of there. Fake or not, this is freaking me out." But I couldn't leave. Not yet. 10 grand was on the line, and I wasn't about to let some weird dust pattern scare me off. I forced myself to laugh, playing it off as a prank left by whoever had issued the challenge. By midnight, the lodge was unbearably cold. I could see my breath as I spoke to the camera. I decided to set up in one of the bedrooms to sleep for a few hours, though I doubted I'd get any rest. The room was surprisingly intact. With a massive 4-poster bed draped in tattered curtains. I set my camera on a tripod and climbed under the musty blankets. That's when I noticed it, a faint sound, like whispering, coming from the walls. I held my breath, straining to hear. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't English, but the cadence was unmistakably human. My heart pounded as I scanned the room, but there was no one there. "This place is messing with me," I whispered to the camera, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's just the wind. Or the pipes. Old buildings make noise, right?" I didn't believe it, and neither did my viewers. The chat was flooded with messages: "It's coming from behind you. Check the walls. Seriously, leave now." Before I could respond, the camera feed cut out entirely. The screen went black, and the room plunged into darkness. My flashlight flickered as I scrambled to fix the camera. That's when I saw them. Handprints. Dozens of them, pressed into the dust-covered walls. They hadn't been there before. Some were small, like those of a child, while others were unnaturally large. Their fingers impossibly long. My throat tightened as the whispers returned, louder this time. They seemed to come from everywhere, surrounding me. The flashlight flickered again, and for a brief moment, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A face. Pale and hollow-eyed, staring at me from the corner of the room. It disappeared as the light steadied, but I knew what I'd seen. "Okay, that's it," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm done. I'm leaving." I grabbed my camera and bolted from the room, not caring about the challenge or the money anymore. As I stumbled down the hall, the whispers followed, growing louder and more frantic. The lodge itself seemed to pulse with life, the walls shuddering as if trying to trap me inside. When I reached the front door, I found it locked. The knob wouldn't budge, no matter how hard I twisted. Panic set in as I turned to find another exit. That's when I saw it. The family. The one from the stories. They stood in the center of the hall, their bodies stiff and unnatural, their faces frozen in wide, toothy grins. Their eyes followed me as I backed away, my mind screaming that this couldn't be real. "Please," I begged, not even sure who I was talking to. "Let me go." The whispers reached a deafening crescendo, and the chandelier above began to sway violently. Just as it came crashing down, I shut my eyes, bracing for impact. When I opened them, I was outside. The lodge stood silent and dark behind me, its windows reflecting nothing but the cold moonlight. My car was parked where I'd left it, the keys still in the ignition. I didn't question it. I drove until the sun rose, not daring to look back. When I finally checked my camera, the footage was gone. All of it. The email address that had sent the job offer no longer existed, and the lodge burned down years ago. The ruins are still there, buried deep in the woods, but no one goes near them. Not after what happened to the last people who tried to spend the night. Sometimes, I wonder if I imagined it all. But then I remember the handprints, the whispers, and that family's haunting smiles. And I know. Some doors should never be opened. If you like such stories, subscribe to Dark Tales HQ.